When the Tampa first sailed into Australian waters after
I will agree that Sir Robert Menzies himself, to my recollection, did not, in his own speeches, use the Petrov case to win votes. And I think this was possibly due to a sense of punctilio as Prime Minister because of the Australian-Soviet government relationship, which is certainly not warm, but not hostile at that time. But the Petrov issue was used for every ounce it was worth by Menzies' senior colleagues in the cabinet. And it was used for every ounce it was worth by the Liberal Party propaganda machine.
In what way was it used specifically?
Oh, I remember speeches made by senior ministers in the Menzies cabinet in which they pointed to the Petrov case as a warning to the Australian people of the extent of enemy political agents in high places and in positions of power in Australia. And they linked with them the leaders of the Labor Party. And they warned the Australian people that men who were clearly soft on communism, as they put it, and who were clearly unwilling to tackle these foreign agents were certainly not men to be entrusted with the power of government in Australia. All right, they won the election. Now what happened after? Nothing. Petrov's defection was shown to be an isolated incident. Not one person was indicted. No one was brought to trial. I think that speaks for itself.
I was not the master of the timetable, so far as Petrov was concerned. You may say that Petrov was. I don't think even he was.
Who do you think
Because the final events that brought about his decision to leave the Soviet Union occurred about 2 or 3 days before he actually did so. In his own embassy, with a new ambassador, and he had been under a little suspicion. I dare say quite rightly, he was getting around in a very odd way.
When the Tampa first sailed into Australian waters after rescuing more than 400 Muslim asylum seekers, no one could have predicted the dramatic sea change ahead.
I can't remember one single issue which has more transformed politics than the decision taken by the Howard government late August this year to repel by military means all future both asylum seekers and boat refugees.
The Tampa was undoubtedly a detonator issue, and it was a detonator issue because the Prime Minister used it intelligently and ruthlessly.
what could have been an international humanitarian issue instead became an Australian security crisis. Public hostility towards the growing numbers of boat people, combined with the fear of extremist Muslims after the terrorist attacks in the United States. It's had a potent electoral effect reminiscent of another international bogey.
The issue of communism right through the 1950s was an incredibly polarising and emotive issue in Australian politics. This issue, likewise, has the ability to drive a wedge into the Labor core constituency, and the anecdotal evidence out of the parties is that traditional Labor voters in working class electorates are flocking to the Liberals at this election.
Suspicion and hostility also greeted Australia's first illegal boat people from Vietnam in 1977. But there was no national security crisis, even though it was also on the eve of a federal election. Under then Liberal Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser, a series of regional agreements virtually halted the flow. Ultimately, Australia took about 140,000 Indo-Chinese refugees, mostly in an orderly fashion.
There are three central elements in why Australian opinion accepted the very large numbers of Vietnamese refugees and Indo-Chinese refugees. The first was that you had political bipartisanship. Secondly, Australians are much